Hi, it's Eason, and welcome back to Movie Friday, where I talk about movies that I might recommend that you watch or avoid for your Friday night, Saturday evening, or just weekend viewing experience. This week, I will be talking about what is the most infamous movie of the director Pascal Laurier, and I apologize beforehand if I just butchered the pronunciation of that name. The movie that I am talking about is the 2008 endurance test, that is Martyrs. You may recognize the director from his later movies such as The Tall Man or more recently Incident in a Ghostland, but Martyrs is arguably his magnum opus and definitely his most controversial and infamous work. The reason why I term Martyrs as an endurance test is that it is one of those movies belonging to the genre of extreme cinema that is usually presented as a method by which you can test your mettle, where you can see how much you can take. In the most basic terms, Martyrs is a 2008 French-Canadian psychological horror. Look, I'll level with you. This movie is actually very difficult to categorize. I mean, it's frequently lumped into the categories of psychological horror and or torture porn, but neither of these quite do it justice. The movie was inspired by the Hostel series and was made in a time where the director describes as being in a state of great depression to the point where he was considering killing himself. And both of these elements come together to make an extremely painful, very immersive, almost hypnotic, captivating but harrowing experience. Plot-wise, without going into spoilers, what I can tell you is this. Martyrs is the story of two women, Lucy and Anna, childhood friends who have met in an orphanage after Lucy has escaped a torture chamber. The movie opens with a very normal scene of what can arguably be termed as a suburban nuclear family having breakfast, which is rudely interrupted when Lucy walks into the house with a sawed-off shotgun and proceeds to fucking kill everyone. She calls Anna in a state of distress afterwards, and Anna rushes into the scene thinking that Lucy has finally snapped, despite Lucy's insistence that she has finally taken her revenge on the people that have put her in the torture chamber that she escaped from. And later, Anna discovers not only was Lucy correct in assuming that these people were responsible for her torture, but she falls into their clutches herself. The people who have taken Lucy in the past are going to do the same to Anna. This is as much of a summary as I can give without going into extensive spoiler territory, which I am going to later on, but for now, let's just talk about the movie in general. And more specifically, I want to talk about how Martyrs differs from the other similar type movies and why it doesn't quite deserve the torture porn label. Movies like Hostel or Saw rely on eliciting a type of response from their audience. The response that they're looking for usually is that horrified cringe, and or audiences with certain pet peeves like their nails being fucked with, for instance, cringing with psychosomatic and or imagined pain as they try to relate to the victims on screen. As such, they rely more on horrifying the audiences and shocking them, but in order to keep the audiences getting shocked, these movies have to jump from thrill to thrill to thrill. You see, by switching between them, they keep you on your toes with the unexpected. Martyrs does the exact opposite of that. Martyrs does not rely on you trying to guess what's coming or your dread of what might happen. It relies on you knowing what is going to happen and being unable to do anything about it. And on its own, this itself is far more powerful than constantly switching between contexts and situations. It allows for the director to sort of needlework the emotional themes of this movie, which revolve around inevitability and inescapability of pain. You are faced with a constant, relentless, merciless assault of the same kind over and over and over again. And in that way, Martyrs manages to be a hypnotically captivating movie in that by constantly putting you through the experience that the victim, that the main character, Anna, is experiencing, it also puts you through it. The director himself has stated that contrary to movies like Hostel that depict suffering, he did not want to go down that route. He instead wanted to depict pain. And the quality of pain that the director focuses on is how it endures. This is presented in two different ways. In Lucie's case, it is presented as how she was scarred from her experiences in the torture chamber. In Anna's case, it is the on-screen depiction of constant pain that she is in. In that way, if I had to summarize the movie in one sentence, that would probably be, that's gonna leave a mark. Mainly because most of the situations that you see in the movie aren't things that you see the characters that they're happening to emerging without severe emotional and at times physical scars. Another aspect in which Martyrs differs from similar movies and or movies in which characters are put in extremely dangerous situations like Hostel or Escape Room or Cube is that in those types of movies there's usually progression and characters usually have a goal. Martyrs' main theme, the thematic linchpin that holds the themes that I have mentioned earlier, those of inescapability, of pain and inevitability, is hopelessness. As such, the movie makes sure that you understand that the situation that our protagonist is in is inescapable. The cell that she is put in is not a place that she can in any way escape from, and this is made explicit to you so that you get into the headspace of being stuck in that situation. This aspect of Martyrs not only impacts the audience deeply by removing all hope from the situation, it also changes the very structure of the movie in the way that it is presented. You see, by putting Anna through the same torture over and over again, and by putting you in her headspace, the movie creates this sort of infinite loop in itself. This calls back to the progression aspect that I have just mentioned, in that in a movie like Cube, you have characters moving throughout the plot, moving through their situation, and the situation has an end just like how it has a beginning. In Martyrs, despite knowing how Anna found herself in this situation, as her torture continues, you quickly not only lose sight of how it begins, you quickly come to recognize that this situation may not have an end. The circumstances that the protagonist finds herself under takes over as being this bubble of infinite torment. It presents the situation as being forever by removing any hope of the kind of progression that you would usually see in a movie like this, in that you only know what is going on, which is that Anna is being tortured, and everything else just slowly fades into the background. As a result of this, you find yourself being almost unable to tear away from the situation, which is why I define this movie as being hypnotically captivating, but at the same time, you just desperately not want to look. Which brings me to the other aspect of the movie, the depictions of violence. I don't consider myself to be a squeamish person. I don't cringe easily, and I usually don't look away, but Martyrs has been one movie in which I almost did. The quality of violence in Martyrs is increased tenfold by how realistic it is, in that you don't see any strange contraptions or elaborate traps or things that were designed with many moving parts to be visually striking. Everything is presented to you with its bare bones. There is just the situation, there is just the pain. And this nakedness, this stripped down approach makes the impact that much more painful. So I guess you can say that the aim of the movie is to achieve some sort of agonizing nihilistic catharsis by approaching the subject of pain and approaching its themes in this manner, by making the audience go through the whole experience with the protagonists, and if you are a highly emphatic person, as the protagonist. I am about to talk about things that are a little bit more specific, and in order to do that, I am going to go into spoiler territory. If you do not want to get spoiled, and I highly suggest that you do not, please skip to this point in the video. I warned you. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Okay, so The Martyrs manages to be as impactful as it is, not just because of the way it depicts Anna's torture, but because it manages to twist your expectations right in the fucking middle of it. The first half hour or so plays out more like a psychological thriller in which you are not even sure if Lucy is right and if this family even has anything to do with her torture. It is only after Lucy kills herself and Anna discovers the torture chamber in the basement that you suddenly shift gears and go like, oh my god, she was right. I guess you can also say that the whole hopelessness of the situation is exemplified in how Lucy finds herself unable to escape her hallucination of a horribly wounded woman, which is brought on by her guilt of abandoning another person in the torture chamber that she escaped from, and her eventual suicide because she realizes, as per the movie's themes, pain is inescapable. And after Anna gets captured, the only type of progression that the movie offers you is her deterioration and her gradual acceptance of her role in the grand scheme of things, in the scheme of the group's plans. I really like that the group isn't doing this for something as pedestrian and bullshit as monetary gain. I like that they genuinely seem to believe that they are doing something for the greater good, that what they are doing is acceptable, maybe even justifiable, because it is done in the pursuit of knowledge. I further like the fact that Mademoiselle, the group's arguable leader, does not try to sugarcoat what they're trying to do or bury it under philosophical, that's a term I invented, philosophical jargon, in that she presents it as being horrific torture for the sake of inflicting pain, no less. She doesn't seem to have any illusions about the terrible nature of what they are doing to these people. What makes this movie even more horrific than it already was is the revelation that they genuinely believe in what they are doing. These people consciously and in their mind quite logically arrived at the conclusion that this is the thing that they must do in order to obtain the knowledge that they seek. I don't know about you, but dealing with a bunch of maniacs, I would take that over dealing with people who completely logically justify to themselves what they're doing any day of the week. Here ended the spoilers. Still with me? Good. As an experience, because that is what Martyrs is intended to be, Martyrs is extremely nihilistic. The whole thing runs basically on despair, existential and otherwise, and does a great job of putting you in that emotional headspace. As a reflection of the director's depression, the movie does a horribly excellent job of making you experience the same feelings of helplessness that both the protagonist and, I would say, the director was experiencing at the time of filming. All of that said, why do I seem to be sitting here recommending that you watch a movie that, for all intents and purposes, was custom made to fuck you up? The answer to that is very simple. Martyrs is a very immersive, very evocative, and very captivating movie. And it is very powerful. Its power may be focused on utterly devastating you, but this does not change the fact that it is powerful. Secondly, Martyrs is just one of those movies that you can just watch and then use to torment your friends with. I mean, if there was ever a dare involving a movie like I dare you to watch this, I believe Martyrs should be a part of it. 3, as a movie with a very emotional side to it, Martyrs' power does not lie in its ability to wrench reactions from you, but more in the way that it guides you into the feelings that you will be experiencing watching it. I really think that you should give it a shot. 4, if you are watching this with a partner, I'm gonna guarantee you that you are going to be needing a lot of cuddles. And, you know, this is one of the movies that you see talked about a lot, especially in horror circles. Now, I don't mean to imply that just because a movie is incessantly talked about, it is definitely good, but I am recommending that you watch it because Martyrs is a very good movie, even if it is absolutely devastating. Having just relived mainly through stress flashbacks watching this movie, I think I'm gonna go for another round of eye bleach. I know I said the same thing during my review of the Poughkeepsie tapes, but by God, that and this, they definitely warrant going for some eye bleach later on, so have it handy. Just a friendly suggestion. Until next time, hope you have a wonderful weekend. It's Eason. Peace out.